everyone.
Kindly start.
A very good evening to everyone present here. I am Simran Jagatyu, the coordinator at Law Internships and moderator for today's interactive session organized by Law Internships. We have amongst us Advocate Astha Chadha ma'am. Ma'am is an advocate at Delhi High Court. Ma'am is a third generation lawyer with an excellent and in-depth experience in advisory and litigation in the matters of civil, IBC, matrimony, family, check bounce, succession. Also, ma'am had empaneled with leading companies and institutions. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ma'am will be discussing on drafting of legal notice. If anyone has any queries or questions, you can raise your hand and we shall recognize you and unmute you, or you may write your questions in the chat box. In the end, the floor shall also be open for any questions. The participants are requested to keep their videos on and mics on mute. Without delaying any further, let's begin the session for today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Simran. Thank you so much. All right. So, how to draft a legal notice? Before learning that, I think we should take a brief on what is a legal notice. Is it compulsory or mandatory to serve one? In what cases do we send them? In what we don't? So, just a brief about that. What is a legal notice? A legal notice is a formal communication to any person or entity informing the other party of intention to undertake legal proceedings against them. So the key words being first, it's a formal communication. Can it only be sent to an advocate? No, you can send it. But normally it is sent on the letterhead of the advocate on your behalf and under your instructions. Then it can be sent to both an individual or a company, an organization, that is an entity. What does it do? It serves the purpose of informing the other person. It is a written information to the other person that if he does not comply with what the notice asks for, there will be legal proceedings. And what does it show? It shows your intention that if whatever you've asked for in the notice is not being complied with, then you will proceed with legal proceedings. So that is what it does. Keywords, it's a formal communication. It informs the other party. It shows your intention to go ahead with a court case. That being said, usually a legal notice serves just the opposite purpose. In a lot of cases, we send it not to show our intention to go against the other person in court, but in the garb of doing that, we do it so that we do not need to go to the court. Because usually it is sent in a civil case. And civil cases, as all of us know, are very, very long drawn court proceedings. And it takes up both time and money. So it is, in most cases, a desperate attempt to not go in that direction. And in seeking the other person to just comply with what we are saying without us spending a lot of time and expensive money in the court, in a civil case. So now again, why do we serve a legal notice? Because it gives us an opportunity before we go to the court to make that recipient of the notice, whom we call the noticee, to come to us in response of the notice and say that if it is regarding, say, recovery of money. So we want the recipient or the noticee to come to us and tell us that we are ready to pay. Do not go against us in court. Or it is served maybe in a matrimonial dispute asking for a divorce. So if the other party, if we've served a notice and the other party comes to us and says, I am ready to give you a mutual divorce, please do not proceed against me in the court. And in all such cases. So it is, it gives us an opportunity to make the recipient agree to our demands without us going to the court. So it is that last desperate attempt at, you may say, a mediation or a settlement or any such thing. Now let's come to, is it compulsory or mandatory? In a criminal case, it is not at all compulsory and neither is it mandatory. If you are aggrieved in a criminal case, then you can straight away go to the police and report whatever the problem is. But in a civil case, the situation is different. In a civil case, if it is a government, if it is against the government, either of the state or of the union, then in that case, a notice, prior notice of 2 months is extremely critical and important to your case. If it is against a private party, then it is optional, but it is always advisable. Why is it advisable? Even in cases where it is not mandatory, it doesn't harm you to send a notice. Rather, it will save you the time. Second, when you go to the court and you show the court that we tried our level best, but the opposite party A did not reply. So we thought that they are not interested in a cordial settlement. Or B, they replied, but they opposed the notice or they contested the notice. And so it did not solve the purpose. And here we are in your court in front of you for you to help us out. So it serves, even in the eyes of law, in the eyes of the judges, and prior legal notice helps. Not entirely, but yes. Another thing that a well-drafted legal notice can do is, when you are the plaintiff, what you do is you serve a legal notice which is not close-ended, as in it does not show your entire story. It does not give the noticee the idea of what your point-to-point case is, but it gives you an opportunity to know what the reply of the defendant will be. So somewhere you can manage and you can fill in the gaps left by them. You can make your case better. That is just, but for that you need to understand that it is a legal notice and not a plaint or a petition. So you need to be absolutely clear on that you do not need to say everything out loud in the notice. It's just an information and not the plaint. Because if you do that, then you have made a watertight notice which serves no purpose, gives the other party a complete picture of your case. And then when you want to actually go to the court, you cannot elaborate on it because you've actually made the whole case and sent it out in the notice, which is not the correct way. So, right. So we've discussed what it should exactly be. Now let's come to the format, or I would say what exactly are the essentials. So first and foremost, a brief format. You start with, of course, the letterhead of the advocate. Then you come down, you write the date on the right side, the mode of communication, whether it is sent by speed post or registered AD, or say these days, even WhatsApp and email is an acceptable communication form. So even if you send through these two mediums, it is considered valid delivery or valid communication. Then you come to the introduction of the main body of the notice, which we discuss later. And then the relief claimed, the time given, and then the signature of the advocate. Extremely important. Because a document is not complete without knowing A, who is sending it, B, to whom is it addressed, and C, who has been authorized to draft, that being the advocate. So these three things need to be there. Now let's come to step by step. First of all, the letterhead of the advocate. Why is it needed? Or why is it kept? One, you are the advocate, you are drafting the notice on behalf of your client under the instructions of your client. Fine. But if the other party wants to communicate or reply to the notice, they should have your phone number, they should have your address. So it is done for that. B, if there is a lack of clarity in the notice, or the other party needs to communicate with you to understand what exactly the lack of clarity, how should they fill it, they can communicate with you on that. And even if they want to just reply to the notice and they want to say, fine, we are ready to listen to what you are saying, we are ready to accept your demands, and we are ready to settle the matter out of court, we do not want to go there. So it gives them the address, the phone number of the advocate to reply back to. So that is why the letterhead. And then comes the mode from with which you are sending it. A registered AD, it's the best form of communication. Why? Because it gives you, it tells you, it gives you information if it has been delivered or not, say a delivery report. Then speed post, again, very accepted mode of communication. These days, even WhatsApp and email, both of them have been accepted, have become an accepted form, and especially during the pandemic, these have become very commonly used forms. Even if we send notices to speed post or registered AD for fast delivery, we actually prefer to add another one of these two modes. Usually, I would recommend send at least through two modes. I prefer registered AD and speed post both. And if you want an urgent delivery, say if very recently a client of mine wanted me to send a notice where one of the co-owners of the property, it was a property dispute, joint family property, where one of the co-owners of the property was trying to sell the property without the consent of the other co-owners. And for that, he had taken illegal possession of the flat, and there were locks broken, and the tenant was removed without taking the consent of other parties. And there was a lot. So the client wanted at least to send a notice to the other party not to do anything with that property, not to sell away the property or tamper the rights of other clients, of my clients. So in that case, what the urgency was, time was of essence. So although we sent it through the other modes, WhatsApp and email, came to our rescue, like to our immediate rescue. That we know that today we've drafted the notice, today itself the delivery has taken place. Now speed post and registered AD will do their job. So the mode of communication is also very important. Then of course comes the date. Then comes, first of all, to whom it is being addressed. The recipient of the notice. It can be one, it can be multiple. So they are called, what are the recipients of a notice called? A noticee, a person to whom a notice is being sent. So they are called noticees. So there can be one noticee or there can be n number of noticee number 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the beginning of the, after the date, what you do is you write 1, the name of the noticee number 1, the address, the telephone number, then you write 2 and 3 and so on. Why are these details are also extremely important? Because these are the people, how will they receive it? And all the notices, don't think that if you are sending different copies of the notice to different people, say, of course, you will send, if there are 3 notices, of course, you will send 3 envelopes of the document named to each of the persons. But you have to write the names of all the notices in the document, inside the document also, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why do we do that? Because once we start drafting the notice, it's not necessary that the entire relief is against one person, against all the persons. It can be that you want n number of money from one person, you want the other person to stay away from something. You want the third person to say if he's the guarantor. So you want that person to take the guarantee. So there can be n number of reasons and n number of reliefs you want from the different notices. So when we write in the document itself, we need to write the name of all the notices. And then when we are drafting the notice, so we can say you the noticee number 1, something else, you the noticee number 2, maybe the other relief or the other work, or on some day he was there and the other was not. So all the notices need to be named at the start so that in the document, we can do away with writing their names again and again. We can just use the word noticee number 1 or noticee number 2, or say if all of them have done it, then all you the notices, so that we are covering everybody. So that is needed. Then we begin with our legal notice, with of course the heading legal notice regarding whatever. Then comes the standard customary salutations, dear sir or dear ma'am or both. And then we start with the typical paragraph used, that is under the instructions of my client. What does this show? This shows that although this notice has been written by me, it's not my words. It is under the instructions of my client who has been wronged by me. So we just, in the beginning of the notice itself, establish that it's not you, but it is somebody else, that is the client, who has been wronged, and we are just acting on behalf of them and noticing and writing the notice on behalf of our clients. So under the instruction of my client, the name, the address, name, resident of, say, under the instructions of my client ABC, resident of XYZ, I hereby serve you with the following legal notice. Now, this is a commonly used practice. You can write it in your own words. No hard and fast rule that you have to write the exact same words. You can write it in any way. Just what is important is you establish the relationship between you and your client. You establish that you are only acting under the instructions of that person, and whatever facts and circumstances you are defining have been informed to you by the client, and you've not made them up. Because normally people may say that the lawyer made up the story. No, it is under the instructions of the client, and you are just the mode of writing the of the notice. Then comes the body of the letter. This has to be drafted well. Do not get carried away with the body of the letter, and do not just write everything that your client tells you to write, because generally it will happen. The client will come to you. The client will be A, emotional. B, the client will want the relief. And C, the client will want you to write as much as possible, because there are times when the client thinks, if I'm paying X amount of money, which is huge, how did this lawyer just make a one-page notice? This happens. And the client will think, if you will not inform everything, it may hamper the case. So there will be client interference at times, especially in the beginning of your career. So do not get carried away with whatever the client says. Remember, it is a notice. It is not a plaint. It is not a petition. You do not need to mention every date, every happening, every event. No. It is just an information, a brief will do. Saying that, let's start. So first of all, brief about your client, what your client is. If it is maybe, say, a recovery of money matter, you can also say that the client is such and such name, resident of such and such place, is, say, a business owner having this kind of business. So you will define a little about who your client is and what is his position in life. Then you will cover the next point. Maybe you can cover the relationship of your client with the noticee. Say you can say that you are the brother of my client, and you share a joint family property. Or say you can say that you're a friend of my client, and my client gave you X amount of money, out of love and affection. So these few things, just second para should be the relationship you've established. Who the client is the first para. What is the relationship between the client and the other party is the second para. Why is it important? Because it is a civil suit. Unlike a criminal matter where even a complete stranger can commit an offense against you, in a civil suit, there has to be some relationship. The relationship can be, they can be co-owners of property. The relationship can be, they can be lender and borrower. They can be, say, husband and wife. They can be friends. But there has to be some relationship. So the relationship needs to be defined. But of course, in brief. Then, how was your client wrong? Now, this is where you need to act. When you will go to the court with a plaint, what you'll do is, you'll write, say, for example, on 1st of January 1999, that on the 1st of January 1999, you, the defendant number 1, did this and asked for money. That then you will come then on 2nd of January 1999, and so on and so on. In the notice, you will write the same things, but in not more than, say, a page or max a page and a half. Just brief down everything. What you've shown is ABC is the brother of XYZ. What ABC asked for money, XYZ complied. X amount of money, say 10 lakh rupees was given. On this date it was given. Then if you have, if it is a check bounce matter, then you will also write the date of the check, the memo, the return memo you will attach, the interest you will show. Then a little about that. And after that, if it is, say, a recovery of money, then few things you should add is that it was a friendly loan. So what did you cover? You covered the reason why the loan was given. You cannot just say, you owe my friend, my client so and so money. How? Who is my client? What was the relation? Why was the loan given? What was the amount of the loan given? On what date the loan was given? On was there any written agreement or not? Was it, if there is a written agreement, mention that. What was the interest rate decided? Was there any interest rate decided? What was the date on which it had to be given back? So mention that. On how much of interest was decided? What is the amount after the interest, after the default happened? So mention that. If you can tabulate, you can tabulate. But at the end, you need to show all this. So step by step, step by step, step by step. Now, saying that, I've told you to mention the relationship. I've told you to mention the reason. I've told you to mention the date, the time. Then why did I tell you that do not write everything? What we've just written is only a brief outline. Now, say, if I say that the loan was given on this and this date, and the time the loan had to be back is this and this date and with this and this amount. And after that, you have not paid. Now, if I take this to the plaint, in the plaint, I take this court, the settlement does not happen, it goes to the court. I have so many gaps to fill. I've only outlined the matter. I have not given on which date what happened. I have not given the communications. What did you say? What did you not say? I have not given on which date did I ask for it. Then repeatedly, then you said this, I said this. That is for the court and not for the court. Right? Then say if it is a matrimonial dispute, then what do you do? And you want a divorce. You want a mutual divorce and you want to say that if you do not reply to the notice, then I will have to go to court. Then you can add something about maybe how your client has been suffering. You can ask a mutual divorce. For asking for a mutual divorce, you do not need to write anything about adultery or anything about cruelty. But it will always be better that even if you're writing a notice for mutual divorce, say if in a passing reference you mention how your client has been made to suffer, or how if you are representing the girl, how your client's salary used to be taken away. So what does that do? That helps you in your maintenance. If the mutual divorce doesn't go through, this statement helps you in your maintenance case, because then the husband cannot say that you can deny the husband's allegation when he says she's a working woman, because you can always say that I mentioned that despite her being working, she doesn't have any savings because the money was taken away by the husband or her family. Or if your second attempt is if on the failing of the mutual divorce case is to go for a divorce under cruelty because your wife was client was not treated well, then you can make a passing reference to that, how that she was not treated well by this man or his family, with maybe with maybe one or two instances briefly, again not in entirety. How does that help you? If the mutual divorce does not go through in your divorce case under cruelty, you can then build up that this man did this, the mother did this, the sister did this, the brother did this. Then you will come point to point, point to point, point to point. In the notice, if you do that, what the other party will do, they will give you a complete reply of how it is not true. Then you do not have the space and the capacity to expand on the points. So just maybe passing references, and also maybe you can write how, despite your client's several attempts at saving the marriage, the position has come, the relationship has come to such a position that now he or she needs a divorce and thus asking for one. So then the other party does not have the option of, you made the first move of saying that I was the one trying to save the marriage, or my client was the one trying to save the marriage and not the other party. So these instances, they will entirely depend on what your case is. A legal notice, the format is general. The only difference will be what your case demands. And for that, I'll want, when our questions open, you guys can ask me maybe particular examples that you want to know, and I can typically help you on that. Right? Say if you are, now another example. If you are sending a notice to the tenant to pay rent, then maybe how you want to prove, you want to give a brief outline that you are a good landlord, your client was a good landlord. So you can maybe say that your client has been fulfilling all the duties of being a good landlord, the tenant has not been paying up the monthly rent, and of course you will mention the amount of rent, you will mention the numbers of months for which the rent has been unpaid, the interest rate if decided any in the agreement, and then tabulate it, and then make a table and mention the outstanding sum. So what you've again, even in this relationship, what you've done, you have established the relationship of a tenant and a landlord. You have also established that your client was doing everything in his capacity as a good landlord, and the person who is at fault is the tenant. So after establishing the relationship, you've established the good faith and the good position of your client. Then say check bounce. Now this is one offense in which it is mandatory to send a legal notice. If you do not send a legal notice within 30 days, which is the prescribed period, then you lose your right to file the case. So A, it is mandatory to send a legal notice. B, there is a limitation period also given. So once you receive information that the check has been bounced, you need to send a legal notice within 30 days. And the word used is you need to. There is a mandatory statement. right? So in this, you will have to mention the check number, the details of the check. You will have to attach the memo of the return memo, details of the return memo. You have to mention that. So all this has to be mentioned in a check bounce case, and it is mandatory. Now comes the point of why are you sending the legal notice? And what do you want from the opposite party? That will be your closing statement. And that is the most important statement. Now let's cover one by one. The first example we shared was of recovery of money. So your last statement has to be the demand for paying up your money. Sorry. Your last statement has to be the demand for paying up the money. What money? Such and such amount, what you've tabulated above, with interest at the rate, whatever percent you decide, or if there's an agreement, then that. If not, then maybe 6%. That. Then you have to mention by when you need the money. You always have to give a time period for the other party to reply to the notice. You cannot leave an open-ended notice. An open-ended notice is as good as no notice. Because say if you send a legal notice to me and you demand your money back within, you've not mentioned any time, then I can always hold on to the notice and not send a reply to you. And when you file a case, I can always say, but I was willing to reply to the notice, right? So normally we give either a 15-day notice or a 30-day notice for you to reply back. Within that notice, we expect the opposite party to either communicate with us and settle the matter by giving the money or giving the relief asked for, or at least reply to the notice in writing. And if not so, you have the complete right to go to the court and file the case. Then say the second was a divorce. Again, if you've said within 30 days, I want the reply, and if the other party does not reply, you can always tell the court they are not willing to reply. But what if you deemed it open? Open interpretation. I was willing to send it. I was willing to reply. It's just that you sent me, you went to the court a little early. What is a little early? Can be my discretion. What is reasonable amount of time? Can be my discretion. Because you've left the notice open. So that is very important. What you want from the client. You can want, say, your money back. You can want a divorce. You can want a stay on whatever activity, entering the house, selling the house. You can want, if there's a check bounce, you can want, again, the money back. Then if you have to get any specific tasks performed, then to get that performed. If you want, if the landlord has sent the notice to the tenant to leave the house or vacate the house, then to do that. So you can do n number of things. What you want, the relief asked for, will depend on what your client's original requirement is. Like when we say, in a plaint, we say, what is the prayer clause? The same way, in the notice field, in the end, there will be what your client actually wants. What is the reason for which the notice has been written in the original? What was the original thought with which the notice is being sent? So that is something that will come there. And then the time. I cannot stress enough on you making it the time period you give the other party. And if you think that maybe 15 days is too early, say it is disposing of a property or anything like that, give 30 days. But give some time and a reasonable amount of time. You cannot do something like send a notice today and say within 1 day or within 2 days. Because then the sender is being unreasonable and that will not serve the purpose. So a reasonable amount of time should be given for the other person to contact a lawyer or think about it. 15 to 30 days is considered to be a reasonable amount of time. And usually these are the periods that are used in the notices. So now you have what you've done till now. We'll revise. You have told who you have mentioned who is sending the notice. You have mentioned who is receiving the notice. You have mentioned what is the relationship between both of them. You have noticed. You have mentioned a brief of A, what the problem was. B, a few instances. C, what is the relief you're asking for, and the time within which you want it. Now, what you need to mention is the consequences that will follow if the notice is not complied with. What do you mean by that? So,
Ma'am, you are not audible.
audible?
Ma'am,
Am I
I guess
audible?
there's a network issue from your end.
Okay. So am I not audible at the moment?
No,
Yes, ma'am. Now you're audible.
All right. So we'll continue. Then comes what will be the consequences if the other party either does not communicate with you within the specified period or does not in writing reply to the notice, or if the grievance for which you've written the notice is not sorted out. So you have mentioned the consequences can be both civil and criminal proceedings. The consequences can be anything, but I would again advise do not mention the exact proceeding that you will go for. Say, do not say, I will go under the civil procedure code under this and this section in this case. No. Or I will file a case against you for, say, recovery of money. No, don't do that. You writing that civil and criminal proceedings will be taken against you is enough. Why? Because again, like I said, leave your options open. Say in future, when you receive the reply of the opposite party, and in the reply, sometimes the opposite party gives you their entire story. There have been times where I have received notices which are as good as plates or written statements. And what that does is, I know what people will do in court. So sometimes they give you evidences, they give you replies, they give you more points. So you are keeping your options open. So just writing civil proceedings or civil and criminal proceedings is enough. In a notice, you do not need to tell them exactly what section you are going to act under, except if, say, it is if it is a check bounce case, then of course in the heading itself you will mention that it's under section 138. Or say if it is a SARFAESI matter where it's a loan default, then of course if it's a 13-2 notice, you have to mention that it's a 13-2 notice. So these are a few instances where the relief is already mentioned. But in most cases, we keep it open and we say that otherwise there will be consequences. And what can be the consequences? There can be civil, we have both civil remedies and sometimes we have both civil and criminal remedies. So both of them can be taken. Keep the other person guessing on what you're going to take. And that is, the law has given you enough opportunities. You just have to keep applying them one after the other or maybe together. But do not need to tell the opposite party of that. Then, of course, the signature of the advocate and the stamp of the advocate. Signature of the advocate is also very important because just if you are, even if you're writing a legal notice on the letterhead of the advocate, the initials or the signature and the stamp makes it valid, makes it complete, and that is extremely important. Now, a brief revision on how should be the points, right? So first of all, keep it concise. No need to send 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages notices. Even if it's a half-page notice, but it conveys the message, it is enough. It can also be, say, 1 page, 2 page. That should be enough. It need not mention every fact. It need not mention every date. It need not mention every figure. It just needs to mention, it just needs to give an overview of the story and the relationship. And the relief asked and the time given for obtaining the relief and the consequences if the relief is not given. And that is it. You do not need to make it step by step. No need at all. Then, again, remember, why you do not need to add each and everything is A, because the recipient is not the judge. It is the opposite party. You're not obligated to send them a notice and fill the details. B, you cannot go back on the facts. If you have made a notice where you covered everything from A to Z, and the document doesn't go through, if the other person says, okay, fine, if you want to go to the court, go to the court. In that case, you cannot go back on your words and file a plaint or a petition which does not include all of the points covered in the notice, because a notice will be attached in your case file. It is the first step of your litigation. So you cannot go back. So make it as brief as possible, only outlining. You need to be able to fill in the gaps as per your convenience and the client's requirements. And maybe the client comes up with something which the client had forgotten to tell you. These things also happen. So remember, the story needs to be open-ended, right? You need to. So you have to make it in a manner that your grievance is explained, but the opposite party should not know what your strategy is. How you will go about your case should not be mentioned. But when you write a lot, you give away things. And that should not be the case. Rather, your strategy should be that your notice is so open-ended that the opposite party should if you have any particular questions on any particular kind of notices, which can help me give you examples. Simran, any questions? Simran, any questions? Riddhi, any questions?
No, ma'am. Students, in case you have any questions, kindly unmute yourself or you can post them in your chat box.
I saw some queries being written in the chat box also. Just check that.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes.
Actually, I just got some internet connection issues.
Sure.
Sorry, ma'am.
No. Any queries in the chat box?
Ma'am, can you show us some sample legal notice?
I will send it to Riddhi once. I'll send it to you guys after the session. What exactly? But it will be a sample. Chitra, right?
Yes, ma'am, Chitrita.
A sample is as good as a draft format, which will only have the heading, the date, the mode. What will matter more is what is your case. Because at the end, after the advocate's name, the date, the mode, and dear sir, dear ma'am, after that, what matters is all the other points will be related to your case. A 138 notice and a civil recovery notice, or say a matrimonial dispute notice, can be completely different. So if you have specific questions, I'll share the draft. But if you have specific questions, like I told you, first introduce your party, then say introduce the relationship, then a brief facts of what your client gave you, then the grievance your client had. What does your client want? That is the grievance, right? Then what will be the consequences if the grievance is not addressed within the specified period? So if you follow this pattern, your legal notice is made, and it will vary with every case. Only the format, the draft format with all blanks can be. Simran?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions in the chat box? Any
Ma'am,
queries?
yes, someone named Preeti Bella asked that what was the difference between plaint and legal notice?
All right. There is, what's the name again?
Ma'am,
What's the name of the person asking this?
it's Preeti Birla.
Preeti Birla.
Yes,
First
ma'am.
of all, thank you, Preeti, for the question. It is the same difference which a brick and a building has, as huge a difference. A legal notice is a formal written communication to the opposite party. Say if you are talking of a plaint, then the future plaintiff is writing a letter. You can take it as a letter to the opposite party, that is the future defendant, of telling the opposite party that this is who I am, this is who you are, this is what our relationship is, this is something I did for you which you did not return, or this is the problem we have, and the relief I want is from you, and that is give me my money back, or give me a divorce, or give my check amount back, all of this, or vacate my house if you are the borrower, the tenant. And the person gives the time that do it within 30 days, do it within 15 days. And then otherwise, the consequences will be that I will go against you in the, say, civil court. So what will be the consequence if you do not follow the legal notices? I will file a plaint against you. So this is a building block for the case to follow, the plaint to follow. The plaint will be the consequence in case of non-compliance of the legal notice. Now, another difference that is there is that while the legal notice is sent to the opposite party, a plaint is made in the court. This will be read by the opposite party, that will be read by the court first, and then the court will send a summons to the opposite party. Third point is, in most cases, a legal notice is sent to avoid going to the court. So to avoid making a plaint or a petition. That is the difference between a legal notice and a plaint. A legal notice is only opposite party, while a plaint is the first step of a civil suit. I hope the question has been answered. Any other query, Preeti?
Yes, ma'am. Someone named Guru Bhatt has asked that how can we send notice related to trespass of land or else related to promissory note?
All right. So notice can be sent in anything where you have been wrong, right? So in case of a promissory note, what you want to ask, I think, is that if a promissory note was issued and the money was not paid, it was not complied with, it was not served. So in that case, the same, asking for a recovery of the money back. Again, establishing that I was the maker of the promissory note description, then you were the promissory note was made for you, then this is our relationship, why it was made, then it was dishonored, say date of dishonor, then the details of the promissory note, maybe a copy of the promissory note, then asking for the relief. What will be the relief? To comply with to honor the promissory note. Then what will be the consequences? Going to the court. Your legal notice is made. In case of trespass, if you're going to file a complaint against trespass under IPC, then a legal notice is not required. You can straight away go to the police and complain. If you want to go on the civil side, maybe say tort or then you can write a legal notice on the same facts. The notice, the format of the notice, the flow of the notice does not change. The format will remain the same. Your case details will change the notice. And in a criminal case like trespass, if you're going on the criminal case, you do not need a legal notice. You do not need to inform the other person that I will complain against you to the police. There is no need. Straight away complain. Any other?
Ma'am, another question is from Namrata. So she asked that what are the grounds that the legal notice is being drafted?
All right. First of all, Namrata, the grounds will depend only on your client's requirements. What are the grounds? The grounds are what your client tells you. The relationship of the parties with each other. That becomes one ground. How your client has been wronged. That becomes a ground. What are the details of the wrong? That becomes the ground. The ground will differ from case to case, and that will only be told to you by the client. Nobody else can tell you that.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Sure.
Good evening, ma'am. My question is, in case of alternative resolution method, is legal notice is being drafted or any sort of negotiation process that is being resoluted? That I was asking.
Right. You want to say that if an arbitration or a mediation is the first step that you want to take, right? Right. So first of all, in that case, again, the flow will remain the same, right? Like I told you before. Where will it change? The remedy part will change. If you have, normally ADR is taken when the agreement or the contract between the parties mentions that ADR will be the first step that we take. Right? Normally a contract mentions, say, and this happens a lot in contracts between companies or contracts with the banker in case of loan defaults, which is happening a lot these days. In that case, the first step will be, if your contract says that the first step will be arbitration, and only if it fails that we'll go to the court, then it almost becomes mandatory for you to send the arbitration notice in the first step. That is step number 1. You cannot straight away tell the party that I will straight away go to the court against you. Then you have not complied with your requirement. And 2, where the remedy is given, the last paragraph, the remedy part where we discussed, in that you need to send that I demand that you should comply with the terms of the agreement, and we need to enter into an arbitration first. That should be our first. Right? If you do not comply with our requests, then we will proceed against you in the civil or the civil matter. So you keep your litigation and alternative matter, and your first remedy is the arbitration, and that should be the statement where you write the last paragraph that we discussed, where we remedies, and give a time period, 50 days or within 30 days, you are required to reply to our notice, and then we'll, as per the agreement, we'll choose an arbitrator. We decide on an arbitrator. That will be based on the details of your agreement. Namrata, I hope your question has been answered. Or any further doubts?
No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is understood.
All right.
Ma'am, next question is from Rakshasa. So she asks that
Alright.
can a legal notice be sent by a person who is not a lawyer, or it is mandatory to be a lawyer?
No, it is not at all mandatory to be a lawyer to send a legal notice. People do send legal notices on their own. So if you are the wrong party, you do not need to hire a lawyer. The only reason why lawyers are hired is so that A, the legal notice makes sense, and B, you do not spoil your own case. Because if you are the party, you will put the facts, the evidences, the emotions, everything in the legal notice. And that is why lawyers are hired, but it's not mandatory. The party can also send one.
The next question is from again Chitrita Prasad. Can you explain the plain part once again?
The plain part, as in the difference we notice on the plane?
Ma'am, she just...
All right, I'll explain.
Okay, ma'am.
All right, I'll explain. So, the legal notice is only a building stone of the plaint. A plaint is filed in the civil courts under the, of course, the relevant sections for obtaining a civil relief in the courts by the plaintiff. The person who files the plaint is called the plaintiff. The person against whom the plaint is filed is called the defendant. A legal notice is only a stepping stone towards that. It is a way to avoid that litigation. It is a way to avoid 20 to 30 to 15, 20 years of litigation, lakhs of money. It is a way where we tell the party that if you do not comply, then we will be forced to go to the civil court and file a claim. That is the difference. It is when we file a complaint, say if you sent a legal notice, the other person did not either reply or replied, but the problem was not solved and you have to anyway file the case, then this becomes the basis on which you make the claim. These very facts that you've outlined in the legal notice will be detailed in the plaint with all the dates, with all the instances, dates and events, everything. And this notice will attach along the plaint. So you cannot go back on what you've written. Your notice and your plaint cannot come from two entirely different territories. It has to be the building stone, building block of that plaint. I hope the question has been answered, Namrita. If you are...
Yes, ma'am. I asked the question.
Oh, right.
The next question is from again Preeti Birla. That is legal notice can be given in every type of cases.
Every civil and criminal, family. All right. So in a civil case, a legal notice can be given. In a check bounce case, a legal notice has to be given. It is mandatory. In say a Sarfazi case where a 13-2 notice for asking the giving the party one option, one more chance to avoid the consequent litigation, it has to be given. It is mandatory. Then in a criminal case, if somebody has committed a theft against you, or say a document has been forged, or a murder has been committed, in such cases, it is not needed. In a criminal case, you do not need to send a legal notice. Why will you send one? Why do you need to inform the other person that you have committed a crime against me and I want to go and inform the police about it? So it is not at all important. In a matrimonial case, again, say if you want to file for a divorce, or if you want to file for a judicial separation or anything like that, it is not needed. But if, again, what is it? You have to understand the basis to understand the answer. What is a legal notice? It is only you trying to avoid litigation. So what's the harm? But in some cases, like check bounce, like Sarfazi, it becomes compulsory. In a civil case, what's the harm in sending one? So that is why we send one.
The next question is from Arnold Stanley, that how to send a legal notice to firm or a company.
A legal notice to a firm or a company, if it's a proprietorship firm, address it to the proprietor. If it is a partnership, address it to the partners. If it is a company, advise maybe to the CEO or the head of business in that area, or the person, basically the person in authority, right? In a company, maybe to the CEO. Maybe if it is an international company, then maybe to the India head. So you have to, and individuals, so you know. So these are the people you can address it to. In a company, it need not be one person, it can be to multiple people also, depending on what your grievance is and what is the need of the notice.
This next question is from Harshit Chaudhary, that how to write a legal notice if a caveat has already been issued by the other party. Means how to draft a notice to avoid undesired delay in the possible proceedings.
A legal notice will not, in any case, lead to delay in the proceedings. A legal notice is, again, I told you, a legal notice has nothing to do with the case. It is only a prerequisite in some cases, and it is only an optional thing that we do in another. It will not delay the matter, not at all. You can always proceed with your case. The legal notice will in no way stop it.
Excuse me, ma'am. No. But I actually wanted to know that if the party has filed a caveat before the court, prior the notice was sent. So they would be like in a very happy mood that, okay, he has sent the notice, let him wait for 30 days, let him go to the court, we will not appear before the court. So how to draft a legal notice so that they appear before the court? Or they obviously comply to our conditions.
Harshit, first of all, you have to understand one basic thing. You cannot force the other party. You being only an applicant cannot force the other party to appear before the court. It is the court's job to do so, right? Your notice, the reason for filing a reason notice is only and only A, to resolve the matter before going to the court, to avoid litigation, right? And B, to start that communication which is somewhere not happening till now. This happens majorly, the second point that I'm saying is, this happens majorly in cases where there is a deadlock between the parties. Nobody wants to go to the court, but then you people are not even talking to each other. So how will it be resolved? That is only a way. You can nowhere, being an individual, you cannot force anybody to come or not to come to the court. It is the court's job. Caveat is only what? Caveat is only you asking the court, if something is filed against me, please inform. Right? It is nowhere, it is nothing else. So it is only you securing yourself against the litigation. Against the litigation that you don't know of. Right? So these are two completely different things. A notice is only you trying to avoid litigation. And a caveat is something where you tell the court, please, if there is some litigation, please do inform. I do not want that if there is maybe an ex parte happening against me or something like that. So if you say, how can you force the other party or coerce the other party? You cannot. Even if the other party does not respond to your notice, squats over your notice, does not reply to your notice, you cannot force. The only option you left with if the other party squats. You cannot force somebody to reply because you are not the authority. You are only an individual asking another individual or an organization to settle the dispute. That is it.
Ma'am, one more thing. Can a person ask for cert? Suppose there is a check bounce case or there is some payment due on behalf of the other. Then can I ask them that if you don't pay this by this date, then I'm bearing this loss. So I would add an interest. I would impose an interest of this rupees, this amount of money. Can a person do that?
Of course, yes. When we write a notice, interest is something we account for. Interest is something till that day, of course, we calculate the interest. And we send them an amount of the interest. Say, suppose it is somebody is squatting over your property, right? Illegal possession. In that case, you will ask for return of your property. You will ask for the mean profit. You've read CPC, right? Mean profit, the rent, the interest, the additional costs. All of this. This will be added up, an amount will be made, the amount will be asked for. And finally, if the other party again does not pay you and you have to go to the court, then the subsequent interest will also be calculated. Plus, sometimes some advocates ask for the cost of the litigation. We also mentioned that the incumbent cost of the litigation will be also covered. And we also sometimes go to the extent which we should not. And that is why I did not mention it to you people when I was mentioning what to write in the notice. Some people also add that the cost of this notice that has to bear will also be paid. But somehow I didn't mention it to you people because I do not vouch for it. Harshit, I think the question has been answered, or any other query?
Yes, ma'am. Just one more thing, that a caveat is basically a thing that they will inform us. It is not mandatory that we have to be there during the proceedings. They can even proceed without us.
Caveat is there for 90 days. It's a 90-day period. Do read CPC, read caveat, you'll understand what I'm talking. Caveat is, if we feel that maybe an appeal will be made, or if we feel that anything will follow, it's our way of protecting us, that please do inform us. And it is there for a period of 90 days. If after that also we feel the need, then we file for another one.
So, ma'am, it is not necessary that the party has to be present in the court when someone is willing. It is just that the court will inform the party that, okay, a suit has been instituted against you.
How can you be remote time? Cannot be, right? So, listen, if a case is filed against you and a summons is issued against you, then it becomes your duty to be present in court on the day on which the court asks you to be present. That is your duty. But a caveat, say, is filed by me. I feel that the other party may file an appeal or something, and I want that I should have been. I can file caveat that till these 90 days, if something happens, it is kind of a protection. It will be, till you do not go and read CPC, it will be very difficult for you to understand. So this whole, I can tell you for 1 hour, but till you go and read CPC, it will become very difficult for you to understand. So both read the bare act of CPC, read caveat, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Still, if you do not understand, then take my email ID, write me a mail, I'll explain. All right? Oh.
Ma'am, the next question is again from Namrata. Is there any limitation set for the numbers of legal notice to be sent?
No. No limitations at all. You can send a number of legal notices under different reliefs that you're asking for. Because one case, when we say, when something comes to us, a matter comes to us, we say, हमारे पास case आया है. As advocates, that's how we talk, right? हमारे पास case आया है. The truth is, it is never a single case. कोई भी type का case आए, वो अपने साथ multiple cases लेके आता है, जिसमें client को multiple remedies चाहिए. तो civil case अलग डलता है, say divorce case अलग डलता है, maintenance case अलग डलता है, 498A का case अलग डलता है. ऐसी बहुत सारी चीजें डलती हैं. तो अगर आपको मल्टीपल नोटिस भेजने ही है, तो आप आप अलग रिलीज में भेज दो, सेम रिलीज में भी रिपीट कर दोगे, nobody is holding it against you. But honestly, there's no point of sending multiple notices. अगर किसी ने आपकी बात एक बार नहीं सुनी है तो वो कोई बार बार दूसरी बार में सुन लेगा, ऐसा कोई कंपल्शन तो है. So it's better not to waste your time and straight away file the matter before the court. But you can send out 10 notices, nobody will stop you.
Ma'am, it was again from Namrata, that is there any limitation set for the numbers of legal notice to be sent? I just got now this.
I think I answered this question just now.
Okay. I have another query, that can a legal notice be sent against a public or a government official?
Yes, it can be. It can be. In the, you have to first distinguish between a government official and a government official acting privately for himself. So if a government official, somebody who's a government official is a private individual in your case, then it is not mandatory, right? But if a government official, you are sending it again to that person in his government capacity, working in the government capacity, public capacity. In that case, a 2-month notice is compulsory. That is before filing a suit. A minimum period of 2 months has to be given to the government or to the public servant so that he can reply to you. And there is a reason why it is so. Because as individuals, we are the discretionary, we are the sole decision takers. But in a government, you know how slow the government machinery works. So it is expected that it will take a longer amount of time for a government, for the government or the government official to reply to your notice or to act in that behalf. And that is why a mandatory 2-month period is given. Again, read CPC, you will get the answer.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, but
read section 80, section 81.
Okay, ma'am. But ma'am, in case of mandamus, that if the public official is not functioning his work properly and I'm filing the writ of mandamus, then am I supposed to send the legal notice first and then apply for the writ of mandamus, or directly I can approach to the court?
In a writ, while filing a writ, first of all, it's a completely different jurisdiction altogether. Right? So you can file the writ. But the thing is, even if you go to the highest authority, right? And you tell them, we want to take your time because this person is not acting efficiently. Right? Don't you think somewhere that person could have been once threatened to work properly before taking the Supreme Court of India or the High Court of whatever state's time? Because sometimes if one person is not working, there's a senior above that person. Even when you file a writ or a public interest litigation, the court always tells you, did you exhaust all the other available remedies? Right? You see a lot of PILs these days, they are not, I would say, not even rejected, they're rejected with costs. Why? Because it is said that you did not even fulfill all the remedies, you did not use up all the remedies that were already available to you. And then you're coming to us. So if you have, why not? Not only a legal notice, send a complaint to that person's superior. Write a letter to the superior of that person. There is a hierarchy in the government offices. Exhaust your remedies first.
I request to everyone, if anyone has any more question to ask, please feel free to ask to ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am, I had one more question. That is legal notice a part of the pleadings which are to be contended in a plaint? And do we consider a legal notice as a supporting affidavit in a plaint if we attach it?
All right. So pleadings is what? A plaint, a written statement. That is called a pleading. Exactly right. Legal notice again a building block to the case. It is not mandatory in most cases. It may be there, it may not be there. You are not bound to give it in most of the cases, right? But can you first of all give a legal notice and then your plaint or your petition can be completely different from the facts? Or if you've given a legal notice, can you backtrack and keep only your plaint to half of the facts? No, right? So it is, I would say, part of the pleadings, because pleadings have been very well defined under CPC. It is a building block. If you have made it, then better stick to the facts given. And nobody's forcing you to make one. That is something which is the stepping stone. Harshit?
Yes, ma'am, this is clear now. But I actually wanted to know till what extent can a person conceal some facts?
Concealing, no, I tell you. Concealing and
showing your part of the story.
Facts is one thing. Yes. No, I'm saying concealing facts is one thing. And only mentioning the out is a different. You cannot conceal that nothing happened with you. But you do not tell somebody this, there is a bruise here, there is a bruise there, you took this amount of money from me on this date. Get it? But you cannot, in the legal notice, there is no mention of a particular event happening. And in the pleading, there are instances. Then these two things don't correlate, right? They don't corroborate with each other. They should somehow be interlinked. But they should not be your entire story. It should just be an outline. If you have nowhere mentioned that this person had taken a friendly loan from me, and you've straight away said, give me this amount of money. And when you make the claim, then you've also written, you were my brother, this was the relationship, on this date it happened. Suddenly the court will say, are these two different cases we are talking about? Right? They need to corroborate. But a legal notice does not need to be your exhaustive claim. Leave some room of improvement if you need to play a little with the facts. I'm not saying don't play with the facts, but leave room for elaborating.
So basically, आपने ऐसे पिछली बार भी बताया था कि कुछ स्पॉट्स रह जाते हैं, जैसे आपके पास कोई अगर लीगल नोटिस आता है तो आप वो स्पेसेस को फिल कर देते हो, तो वो स्पेसेस अपने लिए छोड़ना है, दूसरे के लिए नहीं.
हाँ, करेक्ट. हमें वो स्पेसेस इसलिए छोड़ने हैं कि हम बाद में अपना केस स्ट्रॉन्ग कर सकें. दूसरे का रिप्लाई पढ़ के, दूसरे ने अगर जरूरत से ज्यादा लिख दिया तो हमारे पास जगह होनी चाहिए फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स. ठीक है. मेरे को लग रहा था that you've asked me before. I thought you attended another session. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions?
I guess there's no more question, ma'am.
All right.
Further, I would like to move with vote of thanks. On behalf of Team Law Internships, would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Advocate Asta Chadha ma'am for taking out time for her busy schedule and interacting with the young minds. It was truly an enriching session. Thank you again, ma'am, for sharing such wonderful knowledge and experience with us.
I had a wonderful time. I really had a wonderful time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming here.